freaking first cut. Golly.
Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gehman, and this is your mega preview pod for this week's Farmers Insurance Open. It's storylines, it's best bets, it's one and done. Joining me to break it all down, Patrick McDonald is here. Patrick, good morning.
Good morning to you, Rick. Yep, I'm pumped for this week. First, because I'm off on Sunday. That typically does not happen during the PGA Tour season. So petition for more Wednesday to Saturday events for me personally, so I can indulge in, maybe a Sunday fun day every now and then.
Yeah, what will you do on this very special Sunday that's coming up?
The weather's turning in Charleston. It's going back to 70 degrees. So, maybe a couple beers on the water, something nice and relaxing,
Very, very good. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Then I won't know what to do with my hands on Sunday, right? I'm like, now what? Has this week of cramped content? Have you been able to get everything figured out with the quick turnaround?
Yeah, I haven't really taken a breath. And then, we'll talk about it later on, but with the live news that came out and everything. So it's kind of just been go, go, go. And, tomorrow, hopefully we'll kind of settle down a little bit with the start of the tournament.
All right, well, let's talk about that live news, because the live schedule has indeed been released, and we knew it was going to be 14 events. We were kind of just trying to figure out locations and courses and dates. They're going to start February 24th at El Camaleon. That's a course we should be familiar with in Mayakoba, and it's going to end in Saudi Arabia in November. Your initial reactions to this schedule release?
My initial one is it's going to be a very tight spring for these guys. If you look from mid-March, kind of in Tucson there in Arizona, through the end of May at Trump National DC, they're playing 6 times. And then you have the Masters in there as well, the PGA Championship in there as well. And they're also going to Singapore and Australia, going to Oklahoma, which is kind of just a crazy travel schedule. But some of these guys like a Brooks Koepka, Cameron Smith, they're going to have to play 8 times during that stretch. And that's awfully a lot. That's, more than half their season pretty much. So my initial reaction was spring's going to be tight for them. And then you kind of see it lighten it up with the London in July, only one in August at the Greenbrier, where Yako won a few years ago as well. So that's my initial one. And then the second one is the team championship. You have this new TV deal with the CW.
Right.
You could do the team championship in Miami. I'm not sure if the SEO, that's what they were mad about. When you Google Live Miami, it'd be the nightclub and not necessarily their team event.
Tough.
If they got upset about that. But I'm not sure of the time difference. It might be at 4 a.m. on the CW on the East Coast now or something like that.
Yeah. So that's my understanding as well, is that the team championship will run. The only place you'll be able to see it is the CW at 4 a.m. on the East Coast, which is obviously not ideal. There's a couple of other things here. So let's start with okay. Well, let's do the CW stuff. I know we've talked about the CW thing, but it is jarring to me that they're going to have 14 events, which is 42 rounds. That's it, right? And a third of them are only going to be able to be streamed from the app and not even watched on this new shiny cable deal they have.
And not only that, I mean, Australia, that's 12 hours difference. I want to say and then Singapore as well. So some of these events with the timing, you got Europe in there as well. It's you're not even getting good TV windows. This
is a graphic. Sean Zock put this together on. If you're watching on YouTube, it's a graphic that we're showing from Sean's Twitter account. This is kind of the other problem. When we talked a little bit about this at the end of last year, they don't have the luxury of just scheduling whatever they want, right? For any date, any week, and not caring what's going on around it. Liv has to obviously schedule around major championships, which, the PGA Tour does as well, but they also are scheduling around bigger PGA Tour events. So this graphic that Sean has, it shows you what week of the year it is and what PGA Tour event that Liv is going to go up to. And strategically, as we kind of know, Liv wants to go up against the weakest PGA Tour events. So they're going up against Honda and Valspar and Valero and the Zurich and the Mexico Open and so on and so forth, which is probably a good strategy, but it creates the situation that you're talking about where like you don't have the luxury to have a great schedule release because you're kind of trying to jam everything into one spot and you have to take cues from everybody else.
Yeah, their hands are tied. There's nothing else they can really do because if you go against a Genesis Invitational for like, say that's your first week of the schedule, you're going to get absolutely crushed more than you already are. So you got to go with the Honda, Valspar, like the Florida Swing. I don't want to say got ruined by the new schedule, but it certainly didn't help. And the Honda Classics kind of been on the bad end of the stick here for a couple of years now with all the new events and the changing of the schedule. So yeah, you're definitely right. They can't really do much. And you see it towards the end. They kind of just were like, I guess we got to go up against the St. Jude Championship, the first event of the FedEx Cup playoffs. And that certainly was not their first choice. And it's just not going to end well for them, I don't think.
No, I don't think it's going to either. The other thing is there are 6 international events. I think if you would have asked me a year ago or 6 months ago, I would have been like, wow, there's probably going to be a majority of international events, right? I think what a lot of LIV has done is, and again, strategically, I think it is smart to go for a more global audience, right? You're signing guys under the impression, hey, we're going to go to Australia. We're going to go to Mexico. We're going to go to Spain. We're going to go to these places that have been underserved by the PGA Tour, by the world of golf. We have all these international players. Their roster skews heavily international. Only 6 international events. So 8 in the United States for what I think would be better suited to be like an international circuit.
Not only that, I agree with you. We've talked about that a bunch, but you're going to Oklahoma, West Virginia.
Yeah.
Why aren't you going to like all the major cities that the PGA Tour isn't traveling to, like in New York? And, I like the Chicago, but that's an hour outside the city. It's not in Washington, D.C. It's in Sterling, Virginia, Trump National. And so I wish they would have kind of looked at the PGA Tour schedule more and been like, all right, these are the areas that the PGA Tour doesn't travel to. And I saw like replies on Twitter about like the Pacific Northwest. They had an event there in Portland. And a lot of people were actually like, why aren't you coming to the, PNW? I guess that's what they call it.
That is what they call it. Yeah.
Little inside scoop for you there, Rick.
Yeah.
And so I think they missed the ball, not only internationally, like you said, but also here in the United States a little bit.
Yeah. Do any of these golf courses move the needle? I mean, there are a couple of familiar ones. So if you've been watching the PGA Tour, you've seen El Chameleon. If you've watched the PGA Tour in the last handful of years, you've seen the old white course. That's the Greenbrier event where Phil would be falconing or whatever he's doing over there. Any of these courses move the needle for you?
Valderrama's cool get just because you're going to see it's very quirky and you're going to see someone like a Patrick Reed play there and probably get a little upset every now and then. But that's a fun course on the DP World Tour that they're able to get. And then I played Trump DC a bunch. They held the 2018 Senior PGA a few years back. It's a decent course, good views right on the Potomac River. So it'll be cool. I know a bunch of people who are out there as well, but that's really it.
February 24th. That is going to be the start of LIV, which as we are live right now, that's exactly a month away. I will find the very first couple of events interesting, Patrick, right? Because what we saw last year was there was basically a tapered viewership where people tuned in early, even without their full roster, tuned in early to see what was going on. And then basically the viewership trickled off and got lower each and every event. The new season probably does not have the luxury of getting the novelty effect, that bump at the top. So they're going to just have to be a better product. Now, we won't have access to viewership numbers this time around, right? Because it's not going to be on YouTube. It's going to be on the CW app and the CW. And I'm sure we will be told they were great. Viewership numbers were awesome, the best ever. But like, this really does feel like we're a month out from learning a lot about how much people care about this.
Yeah, and between now and then, you got to imagine they got to make some sort of announcements with some new players. I don't know if Mito Pereira is going to move the needle, or if they have other people in the pipeline, if they're going to kind of have to trickle these guys out maybe week by week before this the start of the season, and then before the second event as well. So you're right. The novelty is gone. The shiny new thing is no longer new or shiny, and they got to figure out something else to drive people to their product. Because as it stands, it seems pretty much complete, right? There's nothing else. They got the TV deal. They got the big names they wanted. The second schedule's out. So I'm not totally sure what they're going to do to kind of evolve. I don't know if that's the right word, but to make it different from the first year where there were some kind of shortcomings, I think.
You know what they should have done, Patrick? And what I would tune in for would be if this weekend, if this Sunday, well, maybe not Sunday, that would probably be pretty stupid, but like next weekend going up against Pebble with no NFL on, you know what I would have done? A draft and have these teams completely redrafted and have it televised and live and analysis and yada, yada, yada. That would get me excited.
Rick, you're preaching to the choir here. You know, get some alcohol flowing, get DJ, you know, saying some crazy stuff, Phil in there too. You're absolutely right, but they're probably not going to do that.
I tweeted this out, but like there were a couple of things that I genuinely thought were going to be cool. Everything else aside, like just there's a million things I hate about Live, but there were a couple of things that I thought were going to be cool, like watching it on YouTube, the draft, the team aspect. I think they've all been horribly mismanaged. So it's like, I don't know, man. It's a tough scene.
Liv had an opportunity. I wanted to get in my Shams era, you know, the NBA guy, Shams, whatever, and break news. Peter Uline out from the Four Aces.
That could have been you.
And they just ruined it. They ruined it for all the aspiring journalists.
Oh, boy. Also, I can't even keep up with who's there and who's not there in terms of like the executives. It seems like every week someone from the leadership is leaving. To use a quote from you last week, rats don't jump on sinking ships or something. I can't remember what exactly it was, but it seems like every day someone from their leadership is gone.
Yeah, so I went back and looked at it. It's rats jump off sinking ships,
there you go.
Which makes sense. And in this context, it absolutely does. Yeah, and the Sports Illustrated article that came out on Monday saying that Greg's got more responsibility heading into year 2. It's certainly a head-scratching decision, considering it seemed like every time Greg Norman got in front of a mic, it was like, ooh, like we're really saying that right now? Like this is the direction we want to go with? But I guess when you don't have too many other options, you got to go with what you got.
They've also just dug their heels in the sand on this. And I know it shouldn't matter when Rory McIlroy or guys from the PGA Tour says Greg has to go for there to be any type of compromise. Like that, Liv should not care about that. But when that's part of a bigger picture where Greg Norman's seemingly mismanaging this every single step of the way, that you think you would use that as an opportunity to get a more highly respected who was it? Was it Mark King being floated for this for a long time, which a lot of guys would have liked, former exec at TaylorMade and Taco Bell. Like a lot of guys would have liked that and would have probably been a path to some conversation between multiple tours. So they just said, nah, we don't even care about that part. We'll just dig our heels in on Greg.
I think it's odd where there are definitely at least a handful, let's say, 3 players in there who don't like the direction Greg's going, but they're recruited by their peers or whatever. At what point is there kind of an inside rebellion, so to speak, where the Liv players themselves are like, hey, we need to get Greg out of here? Because I think that's totally plausible down the road.
A coup, a Liv coup. Okay, we'll keep our eye out for that. Torrey Pines this week. So this feels Patrick, a little bit like one of the milestones in the season. So if you're like a casual golf fan, there's like 4 milestones for when the season starts. It's the start of the season. That happened in September. It's Maui for the Tournament of Champions. That was obviously a couple of weeks ago. And then it's this event here where, okay, we're on the West Coast. You know, the American Express is a weird 3-course rotation. This is a place that holds major championships. You're going to get a really strong field. It's not going to be a hit and giggle. You're going to have, complete control of your game, especially around the South Course. This feels like where a lot of people look at it and say, NFL's winding down. I'm gearing up for the PGA.
And it's back on CBS, baby.
Yeah. We've cut all the promos for that. Yeah.
Exactly. And you got, what are they called on the cliffs of La Jolla? The people,
the bluffs. The hang gliders.
Hang gliders. Yes, that's it. And the marine layer, I believe it's called.
Yes, the marine layer. That will be tricky every morning. Yeah, you got to wait for that to burn off before you can hit your golf ball.
Okay. It's not. I think Fred's the one in San Fran, if I'm not mistaken. This is a different one. We can name it later. But like you said, it's definitely the start of the PGA Tour season. Obviously, Tiger Woods had a lot to do with that, with his domination here at this tournament, at Torrey Pines in general. But got 5 out of the top 10 players in the world. John Rahm, obviously Xander Schauffele, Max Homa, Tony Finau, Zalatoris. So it's a really good top-heavy field, I think. Last year, I had a bit more depth. You had guys kind of a bit below, Taylor Gooch, Joaquin Niemann, Sam Burns all played.
Yeah.
But it's a really good tournament. It's a fun watch. There's some good drama down the stretch. 18, I think, is a fun finishing hole for viewers to watch. And yeah, it is really, a lot of people think of it as the start of the PGA Tour season. I heard someone say it's the start of the California swing. I'm like, damn, we're going to do the American Express like that.
That's real dirty, actually. Yeah. Especially because then that makes the California swing only 2 events then, right?
Yeah.
Because then it's Phoenix after Pebble Beach. So, and then back to Rim. So tough. Okay. The golf course itself, one of the few Muni courses that we have on the PGA. You can go play this, right? You might have to wake up at 5 a.m. and stand in the parking lot if you're not a San Diego County resident, but you can go play this golf course. You can go try to hit the Tiger putt, right? You can go do all that fun stuff, and you are on a piece of property that is just like, if they had a landfill there, Patrick, I'd be like, wow, we should go sit at that landfill, and just because it's so beautiful, like it's that good. So I think it just creates a lot of warm and fuzzy vibes for everybody.
Yeah. And it's, wintertime in the United States, and they're out there in San Diego in 70-ish degree weather. So yeah, weirdly enough, so I went to Virginia Tech, which is in Virginia, which is
smart.
Not much of a geography directional guy, but on the complete opposite coast of California and San Diego. And I know about like 25 to 30 people who moved out to San Diego.
It's so good.
It's unbelievable.
It's so good.
I know there's a big Navy presence there and defense contracting, yada, yada. I won't get into that much, but man, I wanted to move there. And then I was like, too many people moved here.
That's why my sister moved there. And then that's why I moved to Orange County. Cause I was like, well, I should move to California. This is unbelievable. San Diego's pretty top notch. John Rahm also feels that San Diego is pretty top notch, because he loves himself some Torrey. Obviously, his first PGA Tour victory coming at the Farmers Insurance Open. Obviously, won the 2021 U.S. Open at this golf course. I'm pretty sure he proposed to Kelly here, right? Is that right?
In the area, correct.
In the area. And, oh, by the way, just happens to have won each of his last 2 PGA Tour starts, 4 of his last 6 worldwide. The timing could not be better for John Rahm to come to La Jolla and start smacking some guys around.
I've had a couple nicknames for him on the back burner. You could call him Amazon. He's bad for mom and pop shops like us. Who are betting on golf every week. He's just taking us out of business.
Yeah, it's hard.
And in my adult life, I've only seen one other guy go on this type of run. It's Pete Davidson. Just
rattling them off.
You don't really know how he's doing it, but every week, W.
Yeah, you look at Pete and you look at John and you're like, they don't look so special, right? I could do that. Could be me.
Exactly. And you see John Rahm missing a ton of putts, like getting really frustrated on the greens. You're like, okay, I understand that. And then he's courtside with Emily Ratajkowski at the Lakers game. And you're like, I can't do that.
It's like,
and John Rahm's winning 2 tournaments in a row. I can't do that. But
dub after dub after dub.
And like Matt Weiss said, Pete did have a legendary run. He's still going.
I was going to say, is he done?
That run. I think he broke it off with Emily, and he's on to someone new. I went through like People magazine the other day to check it out. Had to do my research.
You got to keep us. You got to keep us in the know. I get it all through my wife. Is where I get it all.
But I will say this: I believe John Rahm is approaching his Kim K era. It's gonna, and it might come at Augusta. Let's be real.
Oh man, that would be nice. That
Dangerous.
would be nice. There was This is a sidebar, but and this is years old. Remember when Rory and Caroline Wozniacki broke off their engagement?
I do.
Okay, and then Rory was like dominant after that.
Mm-hmm.
There was a tweet. This is like 7 years ago. This is so long ago that this tweet lives rent free in my brain. It said, Rory broke it off with Caroline so he could make love to every golf course on the world. And I just think about that. I think about that weekly. And this happened like a decade ago.
That is ridiculous. I think she dated JJ Watt after.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Shout out to Caroline.
Yeah. What's she up to these days? She doesn't still play. She doesn't still play tennis, does she?
No. I don't think so.
Looking at the field, you mentioned it. We've got a ton of top guys. We're missing Cantlay. We're missing Roars, believe it or not. We're missing Tom Kim, not playing this week. Other than that, pretty stout. Xander, back in San Diego. Finau's had a crack at winning this. Jason Day has been great here. He's playing well again. I mean, there are some really strong options if you're out there walking around this week.
And a lot of these guys played well at this tournament. Was Jason Day the 54-hole leader at this tournament last year?
I don't remember that, but I remember on, I guess it would have been Saturday, the final round, he holed out for eagle on 14.
Mm-hmm.
I was like 10 feet away from it. And that, I think it tied him for the lead on Sunday or on Saturday. And I was like, holy crap, J-Day's going to snatch this thing up. So I don't know if he was the 54-hole leader, but he was definitely in it late.
Yeah, so was Justin Rose, I want to say. And Justin Thomas, I believe, was a halfway point leader. He blitzed the North course. I think he shot like 9 under on it, something like that. And
that sounds about right.
He fell over the weekend, 2 over par rounds on the South course. But I think a lot of people forget how crazy that 2021 U.S. Open was with the amount of people who were in it on the back 9. Justin Thomas entered the back 9, tied for the lead, and then he blew one OB, I think, into a parking lot or something on 10.
I've done that.
And then we haven't even talked about Colin Morikawa. He was right there too, and he kind of, as he does from time to time, forgot how to putt.
Louis found it. Louis hit one in the only place you can't hit one on 16 or 17. I can't remember. And Bryson shot like a 43 on the back, right? On Sunday.
Yeah. The what's the second par 5, or I don't know, if it's on the back
one that goes way downhill, and then it's like 13. So it's 10, 11. It's like 12 or 13.
Yeah, I think he made a triple or something on that. Mackenzie Hughes hit a ball into a tree on the par 3.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
So all these guys are back, and I'm excited for it just because I know the architecture nerds. Yeah, I'm going to call them nerds out there. Weren't really fond of Torrey Pines being a U.S. Open venue, but it produced fantastic theater, and it typically does year after year because it's such a good test. And when that happens, the best player typically tends to win.
They asked Bryson what happened on the back 9, and he was like, just luck or something like that. And I was like, that's amazing. I'm going to use that line for anytime my wife asks me anything, like, why didn't you take the trash out last night? Just luck, right? Like no further comments necessary.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's going to be top 10 guy on the odds board that wins this week is my bet.
All right. Well, let's actually find out what your bets are. We'll do our best bets. We'll do our one and done. Also, there is some more one and done drama that you are going to want to stay tuned for. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners. And we're back. Let's do the bets. Just you and I here, Patrick. I don't have so for those who haven't figured it out yet. Yeah, we're doing this very early on Tuesday morning. I'm producing the show myself, so I don't have some graphics. So I'm just going to have to call everything out here. So this is where we take our $100 over to Caesars. We put 50 on a matchup, 30 on any finishing position we want, and then $10 each on two separate outrights. Let's flip it, Patrick. Let's start with the outrights. We have opted generally, both of us, to stay towards the top end of the betting board. We think an elite player or a top end player is going to win this golf tournament.
You said it. You said I couldn't say it better myself. And I don't have many rules in life. Don't eat yellow snow.
Yep.
Don't skimp on tires. Buy good tires. Spend a little money on that.
Nice.
Bet Max Homa in the state of California. Just do it. Don't ask questions. A winner in LA, twice in Napa Valley. San Diego is next. Really subtle third place finish there at the TOC. Just top 10 in this field and tee to green, approach, and scrambling. That's kind of where he fell short last year. The scrambling's back.
He's way better now.
It's really good. And he missed a cut last year, but before that, a T18, T9, 2 prior starts here. And he's an elite player, whether he wants to admit it or not. Max Homa is among the game's elite. I think at 22-1, that is a pretty decent price.
Well-rounded is Max Homa, much improved around the greens, which there's kind of a couple ways you can do this. You got to have a decent short game. Now, if you're Patrick Reed and you have an elite short game, that's what wins you this golf tournament a couple of years ago, right? Or you're John Rahm and you drive it long and straight off the tee and all that stuff. So Max Homa has kind of a couple of different paths taken care of here. You'll hear his name on my board in a bit. He's 22-1 over at Caesars.
And my other outright is I am deathly afraid of John Rahm. So I'm going to Dubai with Thomas Peters.
Okay.
35
I was legit
to 1.
like, Thomas Peters is not in this field. I saw that in the outline of like, Thomas Peters is not in the field. And I was like, I was like, am I an idiot or is Patrick an idiot? And
Patrick's off the rocker.
The answer is neither, because you've actually picked him at 35-1 just for a different golf tournament.
Exactly. And Rory's I think a 3-1 favorite out there. Because, at that golf course, all you really have to do is hit it really long and putt very well. That's where Victor won last year. Rory blew it into the water on 18, the par 5. Vic beat, I think, Richard Bland in a
playoff.
Damn, yeah. Shout out.
It was a shame Victor had to do that to the old guy, but hey, you got to do it.
Yeah. It's a new era. Come on, get these boomers out of here. And so Thomas Peters missed a cut last week in his title defense in Abu Dhabi, but he's putting the ball very well lately. And so I like the number at 35-1. We know what he can do from tee to green, and I am definitely afraid of John Rahm this week.
I appreciate you scouring the full book.
That's what I do.
Yeah, not even just for this event. So Rory McIlroy 3.5-1 in Dubai, Terrell Hatton 11-1, Shane Lowry 16, Tommy Fleets and Minwoo Lee, my guy, 18-1, Robert McIntyre 22-1, Thomas Peters 35-1. So those are two outrights, one for each golf tournament going on this week for Patrick. I just opted. Yeah, you should parlay them. I went with just like two elite guys at the top, not named John Rahm. So I'm just taking my chances here. I took Morikawa at 18-1, JT at 14-1. JT hasn't been great recently, but like the long-term stuff, can't deny it. Should be a pretty good setup for him. Very underrated short game. Don't mind him on Poana, and same with Morikawa. He's a great POA putter, and he's going to have to do it a little bit differently, Patrick. He's not nearly as long as everybody else. He's going to have to play out of the fairway, but the good news for him is that he does at a rate much higher than everybody else. We've seen him play well at Torrey Pines. So I'm just trying to take two big boppers with a lot of win equity at the top of the board.
I love it.
Top 20s for both of us. You have opted to go deep down the board, which I appreciate because I did this last week with JT Post in top 10. He was also 6-1. And wouldn't you know, cash him up.
Now, I think
what?
I think we both hit our top. I don't hit many bets on this show, but
yeah, you weren't here on Sunday night. We did great. We did great last week.
Gosh, I mean, we did so good. Kyle didn't even want to do the show with us anymore.
Couldn't even show his face. So let's back it up with a couple more winners. Your finishing position is a top 20 at 6-1. Who is it?
Yeah. So imagine if I told you there's a guy in this field who has gained strokes off the tee in every start since May. He nearly won this tournament in his debut. That debut might have came
20 years
over a decade ago. But these are all facts, and it's how you frame them.
That's true.
Jonathan Vegas.
Yeah.
6-1, top 20. Approached 7 out of his last 10 he's gained. He gained nearly 3 strokes in his one round at the stadium course last week. Big hitter. You're going to need that this week. Great with the irons. The rest of the game, not fantastic, but just a top 20 at 6-1. He was dealing with a little bit of injury last season.
He had shoulder surgery.
Yeah, so that's kind of why the numbers are skewed, but I probably shouldn't have said that part.
Don't worry. My whole job is just looking at the stats and then skewing them in the direction that I want things to go in.
So 6-1.
6-1.
Vegas.
Top 20. Johnny Vegas. So he missed. So he played in Memphis. He was kind of dealing with the shoulder thing for a lot last year. He ended up having surgery on it in the fall, played the American Express, missed the cut. But as Patrick noted, the only round of shot leg data that we have on him was great. And he's played at Torrey Pines a ton. So Johnny Vegas back in action. At least he should be well rested.
Exactly. And it's a very, I don't know if it's Rick, I believe you tweeted this. It's a big property.
Huge.
So got to have your energy levels up. And Johnny Vegas does.
Bring your walking shoes. I went with Taylor Pendrith, top 20 plus 220. Last week was not a good spot for him. We knew that. I think we might have talked about it on the show. Not a good spot for him. This week, much better. Go bomb it off the tee. If you have distance off the tee, you make Torrey Pines a lot easier. It's not going to be easy, but you have a much wider path to the top. I'm a believer in this guy. He also missed time last year at the broken rib, but I'm a believer. So I'm going back to Taylor Pendrith plus 220 to finish inside the top 10. Our matchup wagers. Mine's pretty far down the board. It's just Scott Stallings over Harris English. I'm officially worried. Are you okay?
Yeah. No, my apartment's, I don't know if it's like under attack or what, but there's dogs barking, garage or garbage men outside. Just
they're in your study right now.
outside. Yeah, it's heathens.
Unbelievable. How dare people live? Scott Stallings over Harris English. I was pretty optimistic about Harris English coming back from injury for a long time. I'm not sure I'm as optimistic as I used to be. Scott Stallings won this event at one point.
Chubby Scott Stallings was a different animal. And we've seen it with a bunch of players, actually. Gary Woodland lost a lot of weight. Keegan Bradley's currently doing it right now. And they've kind of, I don't want to say lost their swing, but they've had to reinvent themselves. And Scott Stallings is all about, fitness and weight loss. I think it's like No Bull is the company he works with a lot. That's all about that as well.
Stop eating your vegetables, people.
Yeah. Come on. Like, did you guys see John Daly? 2-time major champion.
Seen John Rahm? You think John Rahm eats vegetables?
Yeah, John Rahm. I mean, I was just stopped there. I was probably going to say something inappropriate.
It's all out of love.
Yeah, exactly. So eat more carbs.
Eat more carbs. Scott Stallings over Harris English for me. You've gone further towards the top of the board for your matchup. Who is it?
Yeah, so I'm picking on this guy solely because I saw his dad tweeting a bunch this week. And it's Maverick McNeely. I like Justin Thomas minus 140 over him. Like you said, long-term JT is fantastic. The short game's ridiculous, honestly, right now. And minus 140 over Maverick McNeely, who really struggles from tee to green. Yes, he's probably the best putter on these surfaces in this tournament, but I saw his dad tweet. He's been like tweeting nonstop at Golf Digest about like random things. Like one was they tweeted out like the president's handicaps, and he was like, no way this is true, like type of deal.
Like, does that guy have anything better to do, or is he retired at this point?
I don't know. Like, aren't you running a multi-million-dollar company?
Multi-billion-dollar company, isn't it? I mean, isn't he worth like $4 billion? Tweeting
Yeah.
at Golf Digest about their presidential handicaps.
So I saw that and I was like, someone needs to put him in his place. I'll be the guy. And it's going to be Justin Thomas, who does it for me at -140 over Matt McNeely.
You know what the other interesting thing is? McNeely flies. He's like a pilot now, or he's getting his pilot license, and he's like flying himself to some of these events, which is kind of crazy.
That's what well, Arnie did that, and then also Morgan Hoffman, I believe, did that as well.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, I see McNeely doing all his pilot stuff. So I don't know if he flew himself to San Diego this week or not, but it's pretty interesting. I guess if your name's Mav or Maverick, you should be in the air.
Do you think that's what he was for Halloween?
I hope not. That would be so corny.
I know. But I feel like, I mean, let's be honest, 95% of PGA Tour players are pretty corny.
Yeah. Would you? Yes, they are. A lot of them are very corny. Would you lose more respect for Maverick McNeely if he went as Halloween as a pilot or as a professional golfer?
Ooh. I think as a professional golfer, you can't do that. You can't do that.
You cannot do that.
No. I mean, the only people who dress up as a professional golfer for Halloween are probably third graders. And it's your profession. So you could get away with like Top Gun pilot stuff at this age.
Moneyball. This is where we take an extra $50. We're not very good at these. We're actually much better at the betting board than we are at the Moneyball. I think there's too much pressure on the Moneyball here. I went with Hideki, top Asian, 4-1. I don't really trust him in a lot of other markets. I think it's very volatile, but the skill sets required for Torrey are pretty much in line with what like Hideki's long-term stuff is. It's kind of similar to JT. Recent stuff, not great. Long-term stuff, much better. He's on this board, he's behind Sungjae, he's behind Siwoo, and then there's a pretty big drop-off. So I'm just trying to find a market for Hideki, and I went here top Asia.
I like that one. I like Hideki a lot. Obviously, we've discussed he's impossible to figure out, but 4-1 is pretty tasty.
Yeah, it's him and I don't want to count out SH Kim and Carl Yuan, but there's a lot of guys, but not a lot of them have a chance to win this.
Yeah, I think Arjun Atwal might be the one you have to skirt past.
45-1.
Benny on kind of resurging here.
He can drive it at least.
Mm-hmm.
You just went with the big boy.
Yeah, I saw your price at 4-1. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna pick Jon Rahm at 4.5-1. I don't really think I have to say anything about this guy, but I will. And he missed a lot of putts on Sunday. The speed, it was great on the greens, but 3 putts really stuck out to me. It was number 9, where Davis Thompson tied him momentarily with a 20-foot bomb. He comes back, hits an 8-footer. 14, that was the golf tournament right there, in my opinion. A lot of people look at 16, but 14 could have been a 2-shot swing. Davis Thompson missed. Jon Rahm makes his par putt. And then obviously 16, all around 8 feet. And during this stretch, he's been averaging almost a stroke and a half on the greens, which is ridiculous. It's like almost double Lucas Herbert last year, who led the PGA Tour in the category. And there's your stroke and a half right there. I know he lost strokes technically, but he gained a stroke and a half in those 3 putts. So you get him at Torrey Pines, best player in the world, arguably the hottest putter in the world, best driver in the world. It makes sense.
Yeah, if you just want to have like a sweat on Saturday, just bet Jon Rahm right now. Just like he's like his worst finish is like a T8 or something like that. We only have one final thing to do, and it's very critical to the show. And also, we got somebody. He's been caught red-handed, and I'm not sure how this is going to end well for him. We'll talk about that. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners. And we're back. One and done. Oh, boy. I don't have a graphic, Patrick, but I can tell you that one of the 8 of us did not make a selection.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Now watch this drive. Also, mission accomplished. So I understand that it is a tight turnaround. A Tuesday, 8 a.m. Eastern deadline.
I get it. I get it. However, a pick was not submitted for, drum roll please, Sia Najad. Which I reminded him yesterday on the show, on the DFS show, that you got to get a pick in early. Didn't get his pick in. Also, this is probably good for everyone because he cannot mush anyone with no pick.
Yeah, so it's almost he kind of fell on the sword so the rest of us could thrive this week, which is very admirable. I mean, Sia in general is a very admirable guy, stand-up cat. And for him to do this, I know it's not an designated event, but I think maybe it's a long play. Get some karma on his side. And I know this is my first year doing the one and done. What are, maybe there's some new viewers out there. Does he just not get a pick? Does he get the bottom person on the odds board? How does it work?
So, good question. I think he just gets no one. I think we give you what? When did we give somebody like the worst guy on the board? Was it when
already picked him?
When they already picked him. Yeah. When Kyle used John Rahm for like the second and third times last year, we gave him Sepp Straka or whoever was at the bottom. So yeah, he is just going to catch, he's going to catch a zero this week.
Dang. And I wouldn't be surprised if other people do as well. So it might be a decent week for him to miss out. It could have been a lot worse. Could have been a, good event, something like that. But I think Sia will be okay.
Well, I'll tell you what, from the other 7 of us, there's only 3 selections. So if he gets lucky and gets a couple more missed cuts, he could survive this. So from the bottom up, the fans, 213,000 have opted for Jason Day. No surprise there. Kyle M, 257,000, has gone as a lone wolf. The only lone wolf out here, besides Sia, who's lone wolfing no one, with Will Zalatoris. Pretty good guy to be a lone wolf on this week.
Yeah, I'm surprised he's the only one there.
I'm at 265,000. I took Max Homa. Sia, 338, obviously 0. Greg, 338. Jason Day. Patrick, you're in third, 379. You went with
Maximilian Homa as well.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
Kyle at 2.7 million has opted for Jason Day, and Mark 2.74, who we knew 6 weeks ago was going to go with Jason Day, has gone with Jason Day.
Yeah. It's predictable. I mean, Mark at this point, Kyle at this point, they think they got a big lead. So they're playing kind of 4 corners here, spread the ball out, milking the clock. I got news for them. There's a lot of golf to be played. And Max Homa's winning this week. So we'll be right back.
Season's just starting this week. So there's plenty of golf to play. Patrick, thank you very much for waking up early with me on a Tuesday and knocking out this mega preview pod.
Oh, of course. I mean, it's 5 a.m. your time, only 8 my time.
That is correct.
So you don't need to thank me at all, Rick. It was a pleasure, an honor, so to speak.
We'll be back Saturday night to recap the Farmers Insurance Open. Until then, follow Patrick on Twitter at Amateur Status. You can follow me at Rick Run Good. This has been The First Cut. We'll catch you next time.